start and a little bit about yourselves and what you're doing here on this amazing piece of property.
Okay. Shall I start, or you want to start?
Sure, go ahead.
So I'm Susan Walsh. This is my partner, John Freeberg.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say it all came together actually through a disaster of our house burned down
Okay.
in town. Had a beautiful brick home on Burlington, and we were away on a trip. Got a call from a neighbor. Do you know your house is on fire? And it was a total loss. So we pretty much lost everything that we had.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it was like, okay, a clean slate. What are we gonna do? And after a year of renting and thinging, and Louise said, well, let's buy some land and build a house. We're both builders. John's a more conventional builder. He's built at least 60 homes in this town. And I'm an unconventional, weird builder of straw bales and earth floors and clay walls and things like that. So we, through a big series of odd circumstances, and we ended up here.
We were looking for 2 or 3 acres.
Okay.
And this is 58. But it was for 2010. We were just out here mowing paths, walking around, thinking about things. We designed a house for the other side of the pond, and it just wasn't coming together. And then, like, through another series of things, we ended up with this site here up on top of the hill.
Okay.
And we broke ground in I just was looking at pictures. It was John's birthday in 2011, May 9th, 2011. We broke ground, and I knew that we wanted to use a lot of the native. In building a home, we wanted the home to feel as if the home simply rose up out of the ground, emerged from the land,
Nope, I get that.
just in harmony with the land. And I had the guy with the bulldozer. I said, put all the topsoil over there, turn around, put all the subsoil over there, because Iowa subsoil is clay. Not so good for gardening, but really good for building.
Yep.
And we together we designed this house. We just used Google SketchUp, and John's brother's really good at that. Helped us refine it all. And then right from the beginning, when we got the land, we said, we want to live in harmony with this land.
Mm-hmm.
We want to co-create with the spirits of the land, whatever that means. With the land, the water, the air, the trees. We want this to be a co-creation. We don't want to impose our will on it, but we have ideas, and we want to work in harmony. And so we designed the house to be situated for this particular site, with the views this way, with the sun this way. The sun comes in and heats the house.
Right.
There's no furnace in this house. That's our heat source, the sun coming in, and our wood stove. So you design the house to work with the spot where you are, and use the sun for your heating in the winter. Then you make the overhang big enough so the sun does not come in the summer. It's such a simple thing to do.
Oh yeah.
It's just doing it. It's not, but it makes a difference. Here we are, and it's 40 degrees outside, and inside it's 78, and there's no heat in this house. There's just the sun.
Just the sun. But now you've got clay floors.
We have clay floors which are absorbing heat.
And then at night it releases it back.
At night it releases it, and we light a fire. So we have our fire, at night or early morning. And we have little Diego here who gets very cold easily, so he wants a fire.
Nope, I get that.
And this house took us really about 8 years to do, because it was just the two of us.
Right.
For the most part. We had some interns from the college who came out and helped for, a few weeks here, a few weeks there. But everything being handmade, it takes a long time.
Right.
We went into the forest and we walked through the forest and we said, we need posts, we need rafters. And we would look at a tree and I don't know if the tree listens or not, but we said, hey, would you like to be a rafter? And if we got a feeling no, then we just moved on, until we got a feeling that would be a good rafter,
Right.
And so we invited, basically, each tree to come in. And that was a way of allowing the forest to partly dictate the shape of the house. John had said, let's have a barrel vaulted roof in here. And that was it. That was from us. And then he went through the forest trying to find a curved hickory. Hickories are straight.
Yep.
Yeah. So when he found 1, 2, 3 curved hickories, all with a similar curve. And with the windows, we said, we want windows, big windows on the south. And that's what we said. And then we found these trees. The side is a cherry tree that grew up, and it was reaching for the sun, and it grew up and it grew up. It was just this tree, and we took that tree and we butterflied it, and then we had the glass made to fit the trees. So that's just one example,
Right.
of the co-creation of the home, and I think that's a lot of why it feels so good in here, is that it's emerging from the ground. This floor is an adobe floor, and it's the subsoil that I'd had the guy put over there, right? We brought it back, added cow manure and sand, and laid the floor and oiled and waxed it. And all the trees are from the woods. And the straw bales, the east wall and the west wall are straw bales that we went out with the farmer. And
He baled yours.
he baled, and he made I wanted different sizes. And he made different sizes for me, and we were there pulling them off and stacking them up. And
That's awesome. That really is.
it's also, though, why it takes so long.
Right. Well,
And we were started this. I was in my 50s. John was in his 60s.
yeah.
So it was still 10-hour days.
Yeah, it's for myself and kind of the way I feel and look at these things. The hardest part for me in the beginning was realizing that I'm not moving at my timetable. It's not on my schedule, especially when I want to, I'm doing a shed to home. So I've got a traditional kind of frame structure, but everything that I'm doing around it, I didn't dig a basement, I didn't dig a foundation. I literally sat there and, like you said, I let the land talk to me.
Yes.
And it was, I almost got this feeling, and you could say my wife tells me all the time I get these hippy dippy feelings, and it usually happens when I'm on the land. And it was almost like I said, hey, pier foundations. What do you think about the pier foundations? And the land said, I like that. We can do that. You're not digging a big hole in me. You're not throwing my stuff away, and so it's up on pier foundations, and that's kind of my process. And it sounds like it's a lot like yours.
Yeah.
As well. And I mean, I wandered the land for years before I finally said, okay, this feels right. This is where the house is going to go. This is the way it's going to face. We're going to get in. We're trying to do as much passive heating and cooling as we can, as well. So yeah, that all makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, it is. It's listening. It's listening to the land.
Yeah.
Because I feel like this land is very awake and has its own agenda. It has a plan.
Yep.
And we were invited to be the caretakers for this period of time. And our feeling is that there's a big plan.
Right.
And our little section of it is to start building infrastructure because we're builders. So the land was like, oh, there's some builders, and I would say I'm going to burn down their house in town, so they need to come out.
They have no choice.
So they're available, and then here we are, and it's okay. Which tree, which land, which space, and then with the gardens, what are we going to grow? What are we going to plant? And we always had the feeling that it was to be a community, that it was to have we had first thought a tiny house village would be down the hill.
Right.
And so and then a student came and said, hey, I got a cabin, I need a place to put it. Could I put this cabin on your land, and then when I graduate, I leave, and I leave you the cabin? And we were like, okay, And so that was the first cabin. Down there, and through just a series of events, you're looking at this, and somebody says this, and somebody says this, and now you're over here, and we have. If you look down there, there's now four little houses in a circle.
Yes.
and so that's like the tiny house village. They're just not tiny.
Tiny, yeah.
Yeah, they're not tiny houses,
Still much smaller than you're going to get in town.
Yes, it's still much smaller, and that's the only level spot on the whole farm. So that's where they went down there, and there were kindergarten classrooms.
Okay.
They were that in Winfield. That again, this person said to this person, and then all of a sudden there we were, and we had them moved over here.
Yeah.
And they were active classrooms. I mean, we went to see them. The kids were in there.
Still in there.
So they were never abandoned. They were never empty. And they came over, and we just redesigned. That was our COVID project.
Okay.
That was 2020.
Yep.
2020, 2021, we built those four
I was going to
houses.
say, pulling in, I thought, wow, this is not the same place, because I've been out here twice before, both times while I was in school. I think the first time Mark Stimson brought me out here in 2019.
That was before, yeah.
That was before. And then I graduated in 21. So somewhere like post-COVID, right before graduation, we came out again. This time we were coming out and we were looking at your cattle that you had. You had some Brahma cows?
Yep.
Yep.
And it's a wonderful location because literally it takes about 8 minutes and you're at the town square.
Right.
And yet here we are, you don't even see.
No, you're completely surrounded.
See another house.
Right.
From our house.
And I don't know about you, but I love people, but I always, when I want to get away, to recharge, to recenter myself, I just don't want to be. I lived in St. Louis for a number of years, and I kid you not, I could stretch my arms out and touch the next house.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
And I just didn't. So Yeah, this.
This is a nice silent place, and we have nice paths in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
There's oak trees over this way. I don't know if you've gone to see them, but it takes 3 people to put their arms around
On the oak trees.
the oak trees.
Yeah.
They're that big. I don't know, what's that, 300 years old or something. Just very special.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So what kind of skills have you had to learn from scratch? I mean, you both came from building communities. I had a weird upbringing. I had family in construction. I worked construction. I always tell people my grandfather wanted to be a farmer, but he was so bad at farming he had to go into construction. So he was a master stonemason and a bricklayer, and that's how I came about. I still do some of that on the side. My daughter just completed the construction technology course. I've been trying to get her to come out and see her place because I talk to her all the time about implementing natural designs, and she was, kind of the same background you have, and I imagine I have similar background as far as training, more of a traditional construction. So what?
So my dad was a farm boy, and then after the Second World War service, he decided that he was not going to continue farming, and he got married and got involved with selling farm equipment,
Mm-hmm.
and he did that for 17 years, and then he transitioned to house building. So this would have been the 60s.
Okay.
So I was his number 1 apprentice, so I learned a lot about frame construction and drywall and cement blocks.
Right.
So you learn about materials, and you learn about tools,
Mm-hmm.
and you learn about communication. Anyway, all of that served to help us get this up.
Right.
Susan, on the other hand, didn't start from childhood with her construction training. She kind of fell into it as an adult, and she's took workshops in building with straw bale and working with cob, mixing straw and clay,
Mm-hmm.
and so then so she's very proficient with natural material construction, and so
So it was a good mix.
Good mix. Yeah.
I was his assistant on conventional things, and he was my assistant on the weird, all the weird stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And then learning, Google is your friend. It was oh, I want to do something unusual here. Oh, clay paint. Oh, I don't want to spend that much money. How do I make it by myself? And so I'd make clay paint, or make my ceiling in the bedroom is made out of a cottage cheese based paint.
Okay.
And just learning like some different things,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's also like lots of refinements, because if you're using natural materials, it's different.
Yes.
So it's like, well, what is this supposed to feel like? This plaster,
Mm-hmm.
there's not direct recipes.
Right.
1 part of this, 2 parts of this, as much water until it feels right.
Yep. And every region's different too. So
Because your clay is different than my clay, is different than so that's like taking workshops or working with somebody to know what's supposed to feel like, so that then you can replicate it on your own land, because
Right.
it's not going to be the exact same recipe. It'd be a ballpark,
Mm-hmm.
And well, I learned a lot from Bill and Athena Steen in the Canelo project south of Tucson. They've been building straw bales and doing plaster since the 1970s.
Okay.
And they do 2 workshops a year. And anybody that wants to learn about straw bale or plaster should look up the Canelo project. So that was, about the building and the farming, the gardening. You just learn as you go.
Oh yeah.
What it's sometimes. So we built all these various beds around, which we can go out and look at later, and then it's building up the soil because we're at the top of the hill.
Everything erodes and washes down.
It's just solid clay up here.
Right.
All the topsoil is down there in Vince Yeager's field. And we just have clay, so we just have been building soil for the past 10 years with, people know us as we're going around town looking for leaves. And we shred leaves and we shred hay and we put the manure on and we every year we're building,
Yep.
trying to build up the soil. And so we've got the cows. We've got 5 little zebu cows.
Okay.
They're have horns. They've got humps, and they're not for meat. They're just for friends and for manure, and which is helping to build all of the soil.
The soil. Yeah.
Yep. Our compost pile is about probably 10 feet high and 20 feet wide.
It's pretty impressive.
It's
Mine is yay big right now, but I've depleted most of it because I've done the same thing. I've been putting it out on the soil. When I got my property, the soil was absolutely dead, and I know exactly how you feel. I always equate it to the land was looking for a puzzle piece so it could be complete, and I just happened to be the right piece. And I'll tell you what, I learned more from the land than I've ever learned from a book. I get my primer from the book. I'm a YouTube junkie where, you mentioned the cottage cheese paint. I just watched a video the other day about a guy. He started a side business he was a dairy farmer, and during COVID, he couldn't do anything with his milk. And his cows were still producing. So he learned to make paint out of the milk. And now he's known as having this organic paint that's made from the cow's milk.
good for him.
Yeah. So it's, I'm getting that from there, but there's nothing better than the land to teach you what you need to learn. And again, that gets back to the tending.
The tending, I've learned how to use a chainsaw, because
I laugh, but you have no idea how many people I've talked to in the last 2 years where they're, I learned a chainsaw. I learned how to use a chainsaw this week. And, then they almost always go like this. and I just got to giggle about it. But yeah. And
for firewood and for cutting all of these, and shaping. Like if you look up at that one, that shape like that was like a Lancelot blade.
Mm-hmm.
If you know what those are, and I want to start if I can ever retire. I want to from my day job. I want to start building furniture.
Mm-hmm.
But like rustic.
Right.
Like if you see that bench over there, that was at the Sustainable Living Center. They did a workshop some years ago with branches, willow branches and fruit branches, and how to put them together and make a little table or something.
Twig furniture.
Twig furniture, yeah. I laughed the whole day. It was so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, I'm going to replace this. I'm going to replace this. I'm going to make some,
right.
And that will be some bit of new tools, and of course all of the building tools, like the normal building tools, skill saws and chop saws and screw guns and hammer drills. I had to learn because I didn't know about.
One of the harder questions that I always ask, because I don't ever mean it to be offensive, is how do you compare your independence and self-sustainability that you have now compared to 10 years ago or 15 years ago when you were living in town? I just have these conversations with people that live in town, and the difference is, like you, if I want, I love building stuff, and if I can get material for my property, and it's amazing how many times I will start a project and I'll be like, okay, I need this specific piece of wood and it's got to be yay big and this big, and I'll start wandering the property, and sure enough, I'll come across a fallen tree that has exactly what I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So having to learn all that, and again, I'm not trying to be offensive, but how do you compare yourself to somebody living in the city? If, we had the COVID pandemic and everything else, how do you think that affected you in comparison to somebody living in town?
Well, the COVID whole thing didn't make any difference to us whatsoever. I mean, we're both strong and healthy.
Right.
We work from home, so there wasn't any, basically it didn't affect us.
Right.
Because we grow a lot of our own food. Tiffany grows a lot of food.
Mm-hmm.
We share that.
You've got that network where you're sharing and trading,
Yep. That, I would say, that didn't really affect us. We're also completely off grid here.
Mm-hmm.
We have solar panels for our electricity. We direct wired in a DC pump down to the pond. We pump up the water, create our own electricity. The whole town, everything could shut down and we wouldn't even know it.
Yep.
We're just completely off the grid.
Nope. I absolutely love
here.
it.
And obviously we go to the farmer's market if we don't have what we need.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously in the winter we're going to the stores and stuff. And like you said, I need a something. We go into the woods, we go into the old wood piles,
Mm-hmm.
we look around for things, and sometimes you find it, and sometimes you have to go to Menards.
Right.
It depends on what it is.
Yep. No, I understand that exactly.
Yeah.
Nature is yet to provide me with a screw.
Exactly.
So I do blacksmithing, so if I need a nail, I can always go out and make a nail.
You could make one.
I can make a nail, but I have not yet figured out how to make a screw yet.
Yeah.
And I have not found those. Well, that's not entirely true. Living out in the country, I get a few screws I find in my tires, but I've yet to find one that has been just naturally provided.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's definitely and in town, I have had a house on 5th Street for over 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a little lot in town. You can't do that. You're on Alliant Energy and you're on water, and I mean, I had a garden,
Yep.
and grew some of my own food. But I couldn't be as self-sufficient
As you're.
as I am her now, and it depends. Some people now are, and that was like, I'd never heard of solar energy or anything.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people now are putting solar on their roofs in town.
So I find it really enjoyable to share food out of the garden.
Right.
It just when it's producing, it's abundant, and so there's always people that will enjoy butternut squash or tomatoes or garlic, and it's just absolutely fun to share that stuff.
Yeah. We didn't have a very good garden this year, and Sarah had an overabundance of a few things, and she shared it with us. And I can't tell you the feeling, the joy that it brought, that here I'm getting something that was given. And we did the same thing when we had our garden. I mean, Sarah, we had a few other neighbors and some people in our network that would call us and they'd be, hey, I've got X. Do you like this?
Mm-hmm.
And I've never eaten that, but I'll try it.
Yeah.
You got a recipe for it? How do we fix it or make it up? And that, I think, goes a long way, that sharing, that because again, we're getting it from nature. it's providing enough for me, and then it's providing enough to build that community. So that's really, I think what you're walking away with is that a stronger sense of community through that sharing of abundance.
Yeah, well, and we share with the people on the farm,
Mm-hmm.
and we give too much squash or too much of that, and John will take it to the Golden Magnolia,
Mm-hmm.
and so we go in. Do you want this? And they're like, "Ooh, soup!" I mean, that should actually probably get out a bit more. Of people always end up with too much something. And I don't know if people are thinking, oh, I could take it to Golden Magnolia.
Right.
I think you can also take it to Lord's Cupboard.
Mm-hmm. I know we used to donate a lot to the Lord's Cupboard here in town.
If it's fresh, you can't.
Right.
They can't do cooked.
Right. It has to be fresh.
It has to be fresh.
Yep.
But of the excess, and we had chickens for eggs.
Mm-hmm.
And chickens, chickens.
Oh yeah,
They're
got
a prey. They're a prey animal, so they get taken out by the raccoons and the foxes, and so at one point we had almost 30, and then it was a dozen, and then it went up, and then it went down, and our last 5, we just said that we can't have just the 5 in our huge coop. They're going to freeze to death this winter, so we brought them down to Tiffany.
Okay.
So right now the coop is
empty.
Is empty. Yes.
But you never know.
You never know.
Yeah.
You never know. Yeah. It's there.
We've had very much that same experiences with a lot of things. I have no idea. I mean, we've done chickens for a number of years, but when we moved out here to Fairfield, we started doing chickens because of 4-H for my kids. They needed a project. I thought chickens would be harmless. And then I fell in love with the chickens. I just got this wild hair one day. I'm going to build a chicken coop. And I built a chicken coop. And the wife was, well, what are we going to do with the chicken coop? And I said, I don't know. Maybe we'll sell it. Maybe we'll keep it. Maybe we'll get more chickens. And then next thing I know, people started showing up. Hey, we live in town and we can't have chickens anymore. Here's chickens. And again, it's that thing. And our land was kind of the same thing. We were looking for a piece of land. We were looking for a piece of property. And it was just there. And then it was, well, okay, we need to find a way we want this property. We need to find a means to pay for the property. And sure enough, it showed up, so if you're doing the right thing, I always tell people I've got my own kind of spin on natural law, I think, but if you're doing the right thing, the world, the universe, God, whoever, whatever there is out there is going to help you. Make sure you have what you need to continue doing the right thing. And that's what it sounds like you've got going on here.
Yeah.
So
Very much.
Congratulations. I absolutely love it. I loved coming here when I was a student.